All right, I'm still working on number 12 here through the last page of your review. I'm on part G, and I'm dealing with 16 pi over 3. So again, our angle is too big, like most of these angles have been, either too big or too small. So I'm going to start with 16 pi over 3, and I'm going to subtract 2 pi in thirds. That's going to be 6 pi over 3. And that's not going to be enough. I'm going to have to do this a couple times, but I'm going to do it in steps. So 16 pi over 3 minus 6 pi over 3 is 10 pi over 3. So not enough yet, still not on my unit circle. I'm going to subtract 6 pi over 3 again. And remember, we're picking 6 pi over 3 specifically because it is 2 pi. That is equivalent to 2 pi. And that's going 10 minus 6 is 4. And 4 pi over 3 is a unit circle value. So we're down to a place on our unit circle. 4 pi over 3 is in the third quadrant. And I like to deal with cosine first and then flip it to get secant. So if I'm going to do cosine of 4 pi over 3, I'm going to start like this. At all of my thirds, cosine is 1/2. In the third quadrant, where 4 pi over 3 lives, cosine is negative. So my final answer of secant of 16 pi over 3, I'm going to take this value right here of negative 1/2, and I'm going to flip that fraction. So it's going to become negative 2. I know I've said it in class a lot, but you really need to do the baby steps. I know it seems like kind of a lot of little picky work, but the little picky work is important. All right, negative 11 pi over 3. We're working with cosine. We've got a lot of thirds here back to back. I feel like I've been adding or subtracting 6 pi over 3 a lot. So again, just like with the last problem, I'm going to add 6 pi over 3 and see where I end up. Negative 11 plus 6 is going to get me to negative 5 pi over 3. And I'm going to add 2 pi again, because I'm not on the unit circle yet. And that's going to get me to positive pi over 3. And cosine at pi over 3 is 1/2. Done and done. Letter I, sine of 13 pi over 4. Again, just like with our last two problems, well, with G, 13 pi over 4 is too big. I guess with H, our value was too small. Here, 13 pi over 4 is too big. So we need to subtract 2 pi. And 2 pi in fourths is 8 pi over 4. And 13 pi over 4 minus 8 pi over 4 is 5 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4 is on our unit circle. So at all my fourths, and I could have done this really from the get-go, at all my fourths, sine is radical 2 over 2. 5 pi over 4 is right in the middle of quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, sine is negative. So your final answer there is negative radical 2 over 2. Ooh, this is a good line. Cosecant, tangent, and cotangent. Cosecant at negative pi over 6. So I'm going to take negative pi over 6 and first get it on my unit circle between 0 and 2 pi. So I'm going to add 2 pi here. And 6, 2 pi is 12 pi over 6. So what I'm looking at here is a coterminal angle of 11 pi over 6. And since I'm working with cosecant, since my final answer is cosecant, I'm going to work with sine. At all of my sixths, sine is 1/2. 11 pi over 6 is just shy of 2 pi. It's in quadrant 4, and in quadrant 4, sine is negative. To get cosecant, I'm going to flip that fraction. So sine is negative 1/2, cosecant is negative 2, or negative 2 over 1. Tangent of negative 3 pi. So if I start with negative 3 pi, to get it onto the unit circle, I'm going to need to add 2 pi twice. When I add 2 pi the first time, I get to negative pi. Then I'm going to add 2 pi again. So my coterminal angle is pi. If you're finding yourself not needing to do that even whole number of pi's, are coterminal with 0 or 2 pi. Odd coterminal pi's are odd pi's are coterminal with pi. So what we're doing here is tangent of pi. And when I'm working with quadrantal angles, I like to make sure I deal with tangent as sine over cosine. So sine at pi is 0. Cosine at pi is negative 1. And so my final answer here is okay, cotangent of 3 pi over 2. I think this is the last one I'll fit on this video. 3 pi over 2 is on our unit circle, it's straight down. Cosine is 0 and sine is negative 1. Cotangent is cosine over sine. Actually, instead of an x there, let's put in 3 pi over 2. So we said cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0. Sine of 3 pi over 2 is negative 1. So our final answer here for L is 0. Alright, that was G through L. See the next video. I think I can fit the next 9 on one video. If you're needing to watch those, and that will be your review.